Monday, everybody, and welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at The Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges. And subscribe to us wherever you listen.
If you like this show, and I know you do because you're listening, give us that 5-star review.
And as always, we talk judging MMA, so head on over to abcboxing.com to read the criteria.
Danny, this was a unique weekend for myself. I didn't get to watch any of the action live until later on in the evening because I was at a wedding for my buddy.
Yeah, they're always fun.
It was a great time. We had a nice time. Joe and Kim will enjoy a good life together.
Good for them.
Yeah, but they weren't watching the fights, and they weren't interested in the fights. But fortunately, because the wedding ended at 11 o'clock and there was a 45-minute bus ride, I got to plug into the fights on the bus ride home, catch, what was it? I watched live Thiago Moises get his finish. I watched the first round of that heavyweight fight, which was not a good idea. And then later on, I got to watch I watched Shavkat. I watched the main event, which is, I imagine, what we're going to be wanting to talk about here, sir, right? I think we got to load up on this, all right? Let's start here.
Yeah, main event.
So I wasn't privy to the social media conversation, but having watched that fight just as a fan last night, just kind of casually watching it with on my phone with some buddies, in and out, I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not scoring this one. Because it just kind of looked like one of those fights that's like, no one's really separating themselves distinctly while you casually watch the fight. So, yeah, I was just like, I'm glad I took the night off. But obviously, you and I actually caught up on all of the fights today, the ones that I had missed. Mm-hmm. You didn't watch everything live either, right?
Not everything, no.
So it was a good chance for you and I to enjoy a little fight action together.
It was good.
But again, the social media conversation is not what I'm a part of. I had a feeling, though, that there would be judging in social media terms, because that's what I hear whenever they say that.
Yeah,
right?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
and it sounds like your doggy downstairs is also saying that. I hear a little howling down there.
He's barking for something.
Yeah, I don't even know that'll come true, but you know what? Just know that we got a really cool dog in house, Judge Dog. That's his nickname now. What did you think when you were watching this fight? Because you were probably watching it to score live, right?
I scored it live. I scored it 50-45 Tsarukyan live. I'm the only media person, even though I'm not really media, that is posted on MMA Decisions with a 50-45 in Tsarukyan's favor.
The Couchside Judges is media, sir. You are media.
Oh, sorry. I had a 50-45. I thought the first two rounds were pretty clear for Tsarukyan.
And so did the judges, to be fair.
Judges were unanimous on every single round, so that's all you really can ask for. So I'm happy to see that on their end. I do think the fight got close between rounds 3 and 5. I don't think round 4 was all that close, even though you can probably still make a case for Gamrot there, even though he got dropped with that vicious back fist. That was pretty good. I think 1 through 4, the better arguments is for Tsarukyan, though. Round 5, I may have overvalued how the round started a bit. Mm-hmm. And maybe Gamrot's probably the better score for round 5, but it's still a really close round. So
yeah, as I watched this one with you, because you watched it again with me anyway. Mm-hmm. So that probably confirmed some of your suspicions while you were watching it, right? About round 5.
Yeah.
I scored the first 4 rounds for Tsarukyan as well. I did go the other way with the judges and give round 5 to Gamrot. But yeah, round 3 I thought was really close. I think round 5 is reasonably close. And I think round 4, and again, I want to preface this by saying this is us watching it from home, which when all 3 judges are on the same page, like you said, you can't ask for much more than that. I think that speaks to sometimes what things can be mistranslated from home, because these are 3 capable judges. Yeah, we look, no sugarcoating it. Chris Lee had a bad score last week. We talked about that one. We don't need to dive into it. I still think he's a quality judge. I think Sal D'Amato is one of the best judges in the world. I think Ron McCarthy is one of the best judges in the world and deserves more main events like this than he even gets. I think he's reasonably one of the top 4 or 5 judges in North America at the very least. And I think, yeah, I'm with you. I think round 4 really looks like, from watching at home, this should be a Tsarukyan round, at least with a better argument. I think there's probably a little bit more room for it to go the other way, like we're saying. But when all 3 judges are on that same page, like what that tells me, when I think one thing kind of strongly is like, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing.
Yeah,
right?
that's
What am I missing, though?
Mhm.
Am I missing the degree of impact that some of the things that Gamrot is landing? Do we think that what was happening in that grappling exchange was more effective in some way that maybe I don't understand with the criteria as well? I don't know. It actually just makes me start to question myself rather than go crazy on the judges. That's how I try to treat this kind of thing. I try to be a little bit humble about it.
kind of the opposite of everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, but not everyone else, because I think we saw a lot of reasonable. As I was kind of catching up on social media, I saw a lot of reasonable opinions from people like Aaron Bronstetter, from Sean Sheehan, from Caposa. These are people who lead a lot of the conversation around fights and judging and things like that. And I think if they're able to look at it more reasonably, I think a lot of people ought to take cues from these people who are very knowledgeable. They invest their time in fights, in fighting. No one is going to accuse Caposa of not understanding how fights work. I mean, the man watches more MMA than probably anyone on the planet. I can't think of anybody who actually sits down and watches more fights than this guy, right? And then, of course, we have the highest degree of regard for the way both Aaron Bronstetter and Sean Sheehan perceive it. I didn't get to catch up on everybody. I'm sure there were people out there who didn't perceive things as a certain way.
The general consensus is everyone thinks Tsarukyan won for the most part. There's a few members that had it the same as the judges, 48-47 Gamrot. Majority of it had 48-47 Tsarukyan. Then a few, like Sean, had 49-46, and then me, the lone wolf, at 50-45. Was told to stop watching fights.
Well, you probably should.
Stop scoring fights.
I would definitely do that.
I was delusional.
You are delusional.
They asked if I was blind, and I mean, that's the one that is quite true.
You can't even see if there's something in front of your face right here.
Yeah, I have. It was a good time. I enjoyed. I you know me. I do enjoy that.
My favorite one is when I get called a crackhead, because it doesn't mean anything if I've never done crack. Like, that doesn't insult me in any way. It's just like, oh, okay.
I know I don't take it as an insult.
I
think it's funny.
Well, maybe you should. Maybe you should take it as an insult.
I think it's a good time.
Why don't you stop doing this? Quit the show. This is my show now. You're off. Get off the show. No, the real thing that I think we take away from this too is actually, this was something Caposa actually really said, was the fact that, look, can we just appreciate this was a good fight?
Yeah,
and no one's really going to lose here. Like,
Right,
Tsarukyan, I think any reasonable person would sit back and watch, even if he did lose that fight, even if you thought he lost that fight. Like, he had a darn good performance, right?
Yeah, well, he's not dropping. So
this isn't going to knock him out of the,
and he's 25.
He's so young. He's so young in this sport. He'll probably learn from this. I think we all won in MMA as long as we don't go crazy. I mean, obviously Tsarukyan didn't get the bonus. He is someone who didn't win here, right?
Well, he got the fight of the night bonus.
He did. I mean, he could have had the win and the fight of the night bonus.
Right.
But the point being, I think we can all just appreciate that this was a darn good main event. It was a fun one. It was a really fun fight. I liked watching it without having to score it, without trying to score it, without doing any of that. I just had a good time watching the fight last night. Sometimes I think a lot of fans try to get too hyper knowledgeable and too wrapped up in like whether the way things went the way they ought to. Why don't we just watch the fights for fun? Is it that hard to just do that?
You can't just watch a fight for fun.
It really is like, why did people get into this sport? I mean, they wanted to watch good fights. They wanted to watch good action, You want to see the right people win when it's warranted, right? But in the UFC level, the right people win. They really do. Like, the judges don't deprive anybody most of the time of any sort of, defined definitive win. There's a way to make the argument. Even last week, we talked about this. It wasn't a robbery, and the reason being because rounds 1, 2, and 3, you could find a way to give all 3 of those to Josh Emmett. I think the stronger case is to give 2, 4, 5 to Cater. I think you agree.
Yep.
That's the stronger case. But there's also a degree of, okay, it can go either way. And if they're going to leave it in the hands of the judges, to borrow the old adage from Dana White, if they're going to leave it in the hands of the judges, sometimes you're leaving your actions to be interpreted, assessed by people who maybe they're going to see it differently, but that there's also a way to arrive at that because of the way the scoring criteria is set up and very open. And if your problem is with that, then you need to start calling for the criteria to be modified. The criteria. not the evaluators.
Yeah, most people's issue is with the criteria.
And they don't even know
And they
it.
don't know it.
No, they don't. Not at all. Not at all. But again, the last thing I want to say is just, again, harp on the fact that this was a fun fight. I had a good time. I know there's kind of this whole like impact versus control debate, right? As far as, how you're going to give these rounds out, right?
That was
In round
Luke
4,
Thomas was like
in round 4 in particular, right?
The guy for that, really.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, Luke is someone who I think he makes a good effort to understand this as well. He's obviously got very strong opinions and can be locked into them as well. But yeah, it just comes down to it's a hard thing for me to sit there and say, well, the judges got it wrong when all 3 of them had it unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very hard thing for me to have the ego to say, no, you were wrong. All 3 of you. You didn't know what you were doing there. It just makes me question myself, and it makes me want to know and understand why it might go the other way. Like, I would like to know that. I hope I'm able to speak with an official. I had a very quick turnaround for this recording because I was out late. I woke up, I came over, I watched fights, and now we're here, right?
Yeah, and you ate Domino's.
And I ate Domino's along the way. I did. It was delicious. But yeah, so I didn't really get the chance to even try to reach out to any officials who could kind of help me understand, like, hey, why might an official see it that way? So I hope to get that understanding, and if I do, and I'm able to try to help people understand in some way why officials see it the way they do in this case.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to do that either between now and next week, or maybe even just quick mention on next week's event. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Or next week's show. We'll see. I want to move on to something that has nothing to do with judging. It is just us seeing a monster in action. There was an actual monster sighting in Las Vegas. I believe they call him the Shav Cat.
The Shav Cat.
The Shav Cat. It's a very dangerous monster. It comes from the region of the world, Kazakhstan. And oh my goodness, he is just feasting on welterweights. Amazing. This guy, he made Neil Magny look like he really just didn't belong in there.
Guy's a problem.
He's a real problem. 16 fights, 16 finishes.
Hasn't been to a third round in the UFC.
And I'm watching. Yeah, that's right. He hasn't. He hasn't been to the third round, I think, many times. Once or twice, if I recall. I don't see any reason why they can't try to push him even further. He's obviously he's going to earn his way into the top 10 of the UFC's rankings, which take them for what they're worth. But nonetheless, fighters put energy and assign power to those, so they are what they are, right? I really want to see him. I don't think you have to rush him, but I think he deserves a very high level opponent next. I don't know who comes to mind off the top of my head. You got anybody?
I really don't see why we can't just do him and Hamza out right now.
I know.
Just do it right now.
I know, that would be interesting, right? I wouldn't hate it. I think Hamza has earned the right to get an even higher opponent too, which is the only reason I would say no, because he beat Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is such a good win that I don't see why he has to go down in the rankings, so to speak, to fight Shavkat, because he is rising. I don't see that one as a good. I'd rather see him fight somebody a little more high up, but not quite, just skyrocketing in the same degree.
Yeah, maybe.
So I don't know who that kind of would be off the top of my head either.
Luke? I don't know.
Vicente, well, Luke's he's lost right now, right? So I don't know. It's a tough thing.
Sean Brady?
Sean Brady wouldn't be a bad one because they're both rising, right? But they're also like roughly in the same range. That's why I wouldn't mind that one so much. But he's also got a fight lined up, right?
Does he?
I thought he did. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, he might. I mean, I'm sure he's got to have something lined up.
You tell how prepared I was because I had definitely, like I said, I had a lot of fun at a wedding yesterday. It was a good time. Definitely took a break from MMA for the most part. I did make sure to share with everybody who was the main event assignments because I found out about that. I said, we should probably let everybody know. When
you did. I did see that. I saw
I made sure to do that. Jason Herzog gave a little like in his post event like and interaction spree, which is always a fun part of any Jason Herzog fight night.
I mean, you know what? Now that I'm thinking of it, how do we not do Chiesa Brady right now? Not Chiesa. I'm sorry. He fought Chiesa already. How do we not do Brady Rachmanov right now?
Yeah,
15-0 versus 16-0.
One of the O's got to go.
O's got to go.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, that'd be fun. That would be a lot of fun. I would love to see that. I would just gut feeling right now. I would favor Shavkat.
I think so too.
It's hard not to.
Yeah,
that's the real thing with it because Brady's looked terrific, but Shavkat, there's levels, right? There's levels to this, and you just see a different level with him. seems like good fights on the whole for this card.
Yeah, it was
before we
good
get
card.
into the contested rounds. Bellator and PFL too, they were both in action the night before. I know you typically don't always have the time to watch. You were at a baseball game anyway, right?
No, I went to see Motley Crue.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, Joan Jett.
Mm-hmm.
Good time.
How was it when you got out of your time machine?
Listen, I gotta tell you, there's no music bands like them.
Uh-huh.
Like now, that it just doesn't compare.
No,
People don't care about music the way they did then.
Well, I'm not a big music
So-
guy in general. I do like hip hop though.
Like 80s rock and roll is where it's at.
Although I was listening to Hot 97 on the way here,
Okay.
and I'm like,
What's
this is not-
going
this-
on?
This is not the hip hop I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss the.
I'm glad mumble rap kind of died though,
It was terrible.
because
Let's
that's
not-
horrible.
Can we not acknowledge that? Even?
Yeah, we can.
Let's just pretend that didn't happen.
All right.
This is better. We're all better off. But Bellator PFL, I'm always fascinated when they're on the same night. I wish they weren't. I wish that PFL would make like Thursday or even Wednesday, like a regular night, and then let Bellator's had Friday staked out for a while. I think Bellator should stick to Friday nights. They do sometimes Saturdays. I'd still like to see them just have a regular Friday as well. I think it's there's something to be said for like comfort food in MMA. You can expect it the same night. It's like, man, it throws you off. But Bellator and PFL, they obviously, like I said, they went at each other this time. And honestly, I think Bellator really delivered compared to PFL. I think PFL, a lot of their fights were a little stale. That's what happens too when you got a lot of heavyweights on it.
Yeah.
That'll happen. There was a surprise in the Anthony Pettis loss. You know, he got tapped out in round 2 to Stevie Ray. So it doesn't affect his status in the season for PFL. He's still into the semifinals. So like he really wasn't fighting for anything but his paycheck that time.
Wow.
Yeah. Just by virtue of him having a first round finish the first time. Like
Okay.
I think I've said this on the program before. Pretty much if you get a first round finish in PFL, you're already in the playoffs. It's like that's all you really need to do. It's very hard not to make it at that point, just the way things tend to shake out, right? But the rest of the fights, totally underwhelming. It wasn't that great. Bellator was where it was at. A lot of interesting things happen, even in the latter part of the night where it was kind of maybe not, I don't want to say boring fights, but they weren't maybe to the high degree of high action that we were getting on the Bellator prelims, which were way more stacked than usual. I think you would have had fun watching most of this card, honestly,
Probably.
sir.
Probably.
And I think Bellator, because they're not, as I was telling you before we got on here, actually, Bellator hadn't run an event in like 6 weeks. They're not running another one for 4 weeks. So they had a lot of talent getting fights down the card. Guys that they would usually put on their main card. Women they would usually put on their main card. Way down the card. And it made for a much more interesting experience because it was like a whole card of must-watch fights for Bellator.
So you're saying they're treating it like a big time promotion and not a regional promotion where they're making the prelim fighters sell tickets to fight on their card.
That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
To some degree.
Good.
Yeah. I just want to see them do monthly events more often. That's what we're going to be getting through September with them. They're doing one a month. I am told that this is not a permanent change, that this is not just some sort of focus that they're doing right now. Like this is really just the way things shook out over the next couple months, right? I hope that they come away with this and find that it actually helps them and then that this is what they continue to do because I think it would benefit both Bellator and the fans. I think everybody wins if they just have fewer but much deeper and better cards. That's what I want to see.
I would imagine they'd have to promote those cards better than what they have in the past.
Dan,
so.
of course, the big Bellator critic. But I honestly, if they do this, I think they can win you over. I really do.
They could win me over, but they have to prove to me that even Bellator likes Bellator. And until they prove that, I don't know.
Fair enough, sir. Let's get to contested rounds, though, because we only have 5. Because, again, that main event was unanimous. You know, I think we hashed it out as much as we need to. There were rounds that the judges did disagree on. So let's start with our lone split decision of the night. Vanessa Demopoulos getting the win over Jin Yu Fry. 30-27, 29-28, and then another 29-28 for Fry. So we're talking about rounds 1 and 2. Dan, what is happening in round 1?
Yeah, first half of the round is kind of a lot of a feeling out process of round 1. But I think Frey's landing some stiff lefts and good 1-2s. Demopoulos' right hand is landing pretty well for her. She's not landing that many of them, but she's definitely looking for it. Frey's able to kick her legs out from under her. Demopoulos gets a takedown. Nothing really much comes of it. When they're clinched, she lands a couple decent knees to the body. Frey lands some more good lefts.
It's Fry,
towards the-
sir.
Frey, same thing. Towards the end, she's snapping the head back a little bit. I think it's a decently close round, but I'm on Fry, 10-9.
Yeah, I am as well. I think that just the impact from these, and I think even just a little bit more frequent, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's unreasonable in a close round like this to go the other way for Vanessa Demopoulos. But yeah, Fry seems like the better score to me, right?
Fry seems, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so that was Sal D'Amato and Ron McCarthy seeing it that way. Jaron Villel had this one for Demopoulos. Again, not a terrible score, but I think the right one is with the majority here.
Mm-hmm.
We can move on, though, to round 2. And how did you see this one, sir? What's happening here?
The left is working for Fry. She's landing it good, snapping the head back. Demopoulos is still looking for her right hand, and it's landing once in a while. When she does land it, it's pretty good when she does land it. She's just not throwing it all that often. Around a minute and a half left, so she turns it on and starts throwing a bit more strikes, landing a bit more against the cage. She has some solid knees. I thought this was good clinch work. I think she makes it really close at the end, but I think Fry maintained the lead throughout, so I'm going 10-9 her.
I went the other way. I did see this one for Demopoulos, but
Okay.
it's really just because I think I had a lot of conflict at the end of this one, but I try to make my decisions within a moment or so,
Okay.
because I know that that's what the judges are sitting there doing. Like, judges are not supposed to sit there and
Mm-hmm.
deliberate
Hem
and
and
figure
haw.
out. Yeah, can't do that stuff. Like, the round's over. You got to get your card in. That's just the way it works. So I try to hold myself to that standard if I'm going to be doing this the right
Mm-hmm.
way. And I did think ultimately that Demopoulos was able to take it there, but I don't feel very strongly about this at all. I think this is a razor close round. And because I ultimately ended up going Demopoulos 2 and 3, it does swing it her way. But that's just the real unfortunate thing about these, especially at strawweight, where we see a lot of these very, very, very close rounds because there's not always a lot of high impact on the punches, right? It's just the way it goes in a mostly striking round like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tough call. I saw it the same way as Ron McCarthy and Jaron Villel. You had it as D'Amato did. So you and Sal were on the same page. I was on the other one.
Yes, sir.
And that was it for that one. Again, no one feels very strongly that one person or the other was robbed. And then Demopoulos was able to have her little trademark jump in the arms of whoever's the asking the questions here. I want John Anik to go in there next. I want her to jump into Anik's arms.
Yeah. You know what? The funny thing about the next fight we're going to talk about is Josh Parisian's pretty funny because of his post-fight interview. He told Michael he would jump in his arms as well, but he has no energy left.
Yeah, I would believe it. That's fair.
So-
We cut out after that one. I didn't watch that post fight, so
Yeah.
thank you. I didn't even know that one now. Let's move on though. It's actually that fight. Yeah. So Josh Parisian, he got his round 2 TKO over Alain Badeau. Round 1 of this heavyweight clash is split here, sir. So why is it split?
Well, all right. So, I mean, it's all Badeau in the beginning. He's landing heavy jabs, these weird hammer fists from the standing. It's a strange technique. Parisian's, his leg kicks are what really his best strike up to this point until he gets dropped by one of these standing hammer fist things. Badeau gets on top. He lands some ground and pound, but now he's kind of defending the grappling of Parisian. It kind of feels like he's lost when he's down on the ground. Like, wait, what? He's thinking too much. What should I do? Does land some shots, but he's fighting off a Kimura, which really wasn't ever that close. Then Parisian attacks an armbar, and Badeau's response is, "I'm just gonna punch you in the face until you let go." And he did.
That is good heavyweight
Yeah.
armbar defense, actually. That's technical sound at heavyweight.
These were really good shots. Smash in the face of him. Parisian was hurt early, as we said. Finally gets up to the feet, and he works his way to get a takedown with about 20 seconds left, and then Badeau's like, oh, I don't know what to do here. I'm just going to sit here and get punched. The thing is, Parisian wasn't really landing all that many. A lot of them were getting blocked. He was looking at Mark Smith like, you going to stop this? He's like, no. We're not really there. 10-9 Badeau.
Yeah, definitely 10-9 Badeau. I felt really strongly about this one just because of the degree to which it looked like a lot of these shots are being covered up and blocked and not really landing flush or anything. It doesn't seem like Badeau's in a very good way, especially when you consider how it more or less continued into the next round.
Right, yeah.
When Badeau, obviously, he couldn't do anything more and he got finished. But you can't obviously use that as hindsight judging. It's not the way it works, right? I think if you just weigh the actions of this round and give the immediate to it, I think you absolutely have to give this one to Badeau. But I'll give Tony Weeks credit in the sense that, because he's the ones who saw this for Parisian. I mean, depending on where his cage side seat is, right, and depending what his angle is, depending on if he looked at the screen or if that kind of thing, is he seeing how much of this is covered up or not? Does he seem to think that these are landing flush? Because what he can also be seeing is there's a fighter out there who's not doing anything but just standing there or sitting there, slumped over and getting punched. So if from his angle it's looking like they're landing, I can understand it. I can understand the score. I don't think it's a good score, but I will actually understand it. So I don't think this is a round that we have to like get on Tony Weeks for. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna get on him for being the opposite and making me have to rewatch it.
Well, that's fine. You can be very mad at making you watch a second first round heavyweight fight.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That just sounds horrible.
In that sense, come on, Tony, you jerk. But no, it's defensible because of the location that he was at. It's understandable anyway. Maybe not as much defensible, but understandable, the circumstances of it. But it's another argument for maybe if he had a different angle at the cage, or maybe if he was looking at the screen, maybe he really sees that better. Because I do think we had a good angle on our TV screen of how much these are landing. I think sometimes maybe we don't. This time I think we really did. And it just looked like you couldn't do that much. But even if you consider that, it's still possible to go in the direction of Baudot in there, because he dominated most of the action.
Yeah, he hurt him.
Yeah.
He hurt him worse than Baudot was.
I think so. So, judges land on the right side, Chris Lee and Junichiro Kamijo. Again, Tony Weeks, come on. But otherwise, it's a solid, understandable reason why we got there. Let's move on to Umar Nurmagomedov and Nate Maness. It didn't really go Maness's way. We're talking about 2 rounds here. These are our last 2 of the show. That there's a 10-8-9 debate. So round 2 is where we'll start. Why are we thinking Umar might have gotten a 10-9?
Yeah,
or 8, excuse me.
Umar, he gets it down. He's just overwhelming in his transitions. Maness is doing good to make him work for his passes and his positions, but he's just 100% defensive. And Umar's landed some good elbows when he does finally get to his position. Side control elbows. Then the final 40 seconds, he gets the back, and this is where I think he pushes it over. He's landing some really good ground and pound, and that's where he gets it from 10-8.
I think so too. I do think that, again, if you're looking at this from maybe the way the criteria was being interpreted and adjudicated before that round, we always go back to Adesanya and Blachowicz round 5 last year. I think if you look at it beforehand, I think a lot of judges are still able to say, yeah, that's still a 10-8, right? Because he's got the dominance and he's got the duration, and there's just not a whole lot that Nate Maness did to, earn his 9.
Right.
It's hard to see why he would have earned the 9 here, but there is that damage there. You're right, and I think that does push it over. But it's close enough that, like, okay, if by the current standards of the 8-9 assessment, you can see why maybe it would only be a 9. I still like an 8 better, just like you. So I went with Chris Lee. You went with Chris Lee. It wasn't Junichiro Kamijo and Tony Weeks. They were the ones who only saw this as a 9. They are the majority, but we're not with the majority. So what does that mean for Chris Lee?
Couch side override.
And round 3, we've got this last one. Why is this one maybe a 10-8 for Umar?
Yeah, on the feet, he's landed some good leg kicks. Then he lands a nice head kick, and then a totally disrespectful front kick to the face. Eventually, he gets bored of beating him up on the feet and decides to take him down. Up to this point, Maness hasn't landed a single thing. I don't think he's really thrown much at all. Umar gets it to the ground, finishes with some Tito Ortiz style ground and pound, just throwing elbows from inside the guard. He did pass at one point. This is just one-way traffic the whole way. 10-8. Yeah,
this is a round that I think really ought to be an 8, like pretty simply, because of the fact that you can't make an argument that Nate Maness earned his 9 here. He just didn't. He was getting lit up on the feet. He's getting dominated on the ground. It's all his way, the whole round for Nurmagomedov. You gotta go for the 8 here. I think this is where it really ought to be. So yeah. I'm actually a little surprised that Judge Kamijo only gave the 9 here. Maybe he's looking for maybe something that's closer to a finish, if I'm just speculating, but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I think this should be an 8.
So you and I were united with Chris Lee and Tony Weeks. That's the majority. There's no couch side override here, but ultimately, yeah, I think 30-25 looks like the ideal score from the couch side judges. And but it doesn't make a difference. We're still talking about Nurmagomedov won, definitely, and that is not a surprise because his name is Nurmagomedov. It shouldn't surprise me. If you see Nurmagomedov, it's lined up on the bout sheet, and you're the one who's gonna fight him. It's like, man, can't we just do this one later? Like, let me get a few more wins under my belt first. But that's why I'm not a fighter, right?
That would be why, yeah.
Yeah. I also don't like getting hit anymore. That wasn't fun. Well, I didn't like getting hit before either, but Nonetheless, let's move on to our favorite finishes too, which there were 6 of them. We had 3 TKOs, 3 submissions. 4 of these fights ended in the first round. What was your favorite of the 6 finishes, sir?
Thiago
from UFC.
Yeah.
We're leaving out Bellator and PFL just because you didn't watch.
Yeah, Thiago Moises, 1-arm rear naked choke over Christos Giagos. Awesome technique. I bet we see a lot more of this coming, where people grab the elbow to squeeze when they can't, lock their arms together.
Sure, a lot.
I think that's going to happen.
Wherever you can get the most leverage, I guess, right? The most torque, the most compression of the.
Well, what people mostly they you grab the top arm and defend that, and then they can't finish the choke. Well, now if they just slide their hand across and grab their far elbow, it seems like it's a much easier way to lock it up. I think a lot of people are going to try to start training this, and I think we'll see more of it.
I guess you probably have to have the ability to get your arm in position too, right? Maybe someone with like shorter arms could have the issues. I don't know. Just speculating.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking about that, because I always found that I have like kind of shorter legs, and I always found that triangles from the bottom were kind of harder for me to kind of get. So I don't know, and maybe that's just because I was a scrub. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But I always found it a little more challenging. I kind of chalked it up in my head, at least, to maybe it's just that I have shorter legs. So I could see physiological differences just making things harder or easier. I mean, if you got longer arms, maybe it's even easier. Someone like, I picture like Zabit. Zabit, before he retired, seemed like he had like very like kind of lanky, long features. And I could see him actually being able to like do that more easily, Just thinking of a name off the top of my head.
Yeah, he could. Neil Magny could have done it, but he didn't.
Neil Magny was not in a position to do anything to Shavkat Rakhmonov. What an animal! It was Joe Rogan loves to say that, an animal, right?
Yeah.
I'm going with Monster. I like Monster better.
Monster. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, was that your favorite or no?
No, it actually wasn't. My favorite finish was Mario Bautista getting the round 1 rear naked choke as well.
That was good too.
I mean, just him and Brian Kelleher. Like when I saw them lined up, I'm like, well, someone's gonna get finished early. I know this isn't gonna go that long, so I was pretty excited for this fight just in general. And sure enough, it was Bautista who looked just phenomenal over Brian Kelleher, who's he's no slouch. It's a good win.
You called that a big boy performance.
It is a big boy performance. Yeah. He looked so good. He kind of like, I didn't really maul him. It wasn't the same as like the Rakhmonov kind of situation, but it was it was a damn good performance. I think it's the best we've seen from Bautista.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is it for the weekend action in Las Vegas. This weekend we've got PFL on Friday, and we've got a little bit of a pay-per-view action on Saturday.
Yeah.
Just a little pay-per-view with a lot of fights that are really cool. We'll start real quick with PFL, which remains in Atlanta with judges from Georgia, which I will say, to their credit, I don't think there was anything crazy going on at PFL on Friday night. And they actually had Derek Cleary, who was a local. He's a Georgia-based judge who was not in action the first time. Maybe he wasn't available. Who knows? But he was there this time as part of their 4-person team. Not man. There was also a female judge, Monica Ridgway. So it was nice to see another top official out there at PFL. We don't get a lot of top officials at PFL events. So that just helps me feel a little better knowing that there's someone there who, maybe even other judges can kind of try to, pick his brain from and learn, because he's got so much experience. You would think he would know a lot.
Yeah.
And that could rub off on them. But this weekend, it's welterweights and women's lightweights. Headlined, of course, by Kayla Harrison, who was supposed to fight Julia Budd, but she had to bow out, unfortunately. So Caitlin Young steps in. Definitely a less interesting fight. Caitlin Young's been kind of like a pioneer in women's fights for a long time. She's been a big part of it, both in the cage and behind the scenes. But yeah, I have a hard time looking at this one as anything other than Kayla Harrison's probably gonna maul Caitlin Young.
Yeah, Kayla Harrison showcase.
Probably.
Remember when WWE they'd be like, oh, this guy's in action. They never told you his opponent. Like, they should probably just PFL do that with Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison in action.
Are you implying there's a random jobber? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I guess so, yeah.
I guess you're calling Caitlin Young a jobber.
In this sense, yeah. I don't see it being.
I get what you're
competitive.
saying. She has too much respect, especially among women in MMA, for me to ever put that together. But I understand what you're saying. I get it. I get it. But I'm more interested though in the welterweights in action because it's Rory McDonald, Sabadu C, excuse me, and then Ray Cooper III against Brett Cooper. So good luck calling Coopers.
Cooper's landing good here.
It's Cooper and Cooper 3. or it'll just be Ray and Brett. It'll probably just be Ray and Brett. I'm sure.
Ray and Brett.
Guaranteed the 3-man booth of Sean O'Connell, Randy Couture, and Kenny Florian are going to have some fun with that.
Yeah.
And hopefully they won't stumble on Cooper. Good luck to them on that one. But yeah, I'm much more interested in those fights. The welterweight, I would say welterweight in the PFL is the most interesting of their divisions.
Yeah.
I still think they would be so much better off just going kind of just a little offbeat and go 165 and 175. Those should be two of their divisions.
I can't disagree.
And 195. They should just get off of the 205 and go down to 195. They'd be so cool. Like they would be able to say we have the best in the world at that weight class. I mean, now 65, I think they could at least make an argument now with Eagle FC, right?
Yeah, Eagle has the those divisions.
This is such it's a no-brainer to me. Like, you can market this. We have the best fighters in the world at that particular weight class. No, UFC doesn't have the best at 165.
I can see fighters being like, you know what, I'd much rather fight at 165.
Absolutely. It gives them a chance to try something out. It would be, but of course they won't do that. Because Smart Cage.
Smart Cage, verdict, fighter performance rating.
Fighter performance rating. Oh, God. There's a lot of things I like about PFL. There's a lot of things I really don't like about PFL. So It is what it is. Much more interested in the action on Saturday, of course. And that is UFC 276, 2 title fights. Israel Adesanya against Jared Cannonier at 185. Alexander Volkanovski against Max Holloway for the 3rd time at 145. Which of these two are you more interested in? I think I know, but
Vulcan Holloway.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Sure.
I mean, there's the crazy thing is there's way more intrigue about this fight, even though one guy won both fights.
Yeah,
don't see that too often.
It's weird because Holloway, you just can't get rid of him
because he's so
always
good.
Going to be at the top.
He's just that. Those two, they're like 1A and 1B.
Yeah,
and then there's probably not a 2, and it just gets down to 3. And then they're on as far as like tiers go, right? It's just there's so much more ahead of everybody else, I think, at 145 pounds right now, which is crazy because there's so much talent at 145.
Which is weird because 45 is just stacked too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and to be that far ahead of them is kind of crazy.
Like they probably should just fight like 6 times.
I'm just shocked Volkanovski's fighting for a 2nd time this year. I got to see him live for the first time. He put on a great performance against the zombie. So I'm excited to see how.
I told you he wanted to fight more.
He might like.
I told you that
more.
at the time.
He might even put on better performances the more he fights.
Maybe. I'll bet you he has a 3rd title defense this year too. Well, let's say a 3rd fight because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and make a pick. I really don't know who's going to win this one. This is just a technician's delight here. I think these two are just amazing. They're really at the pinnacle of technique in MMA.
Yeah.
And I think it really is just going to come down to who executes better on the night of. And that's why it's almost like a baseball game, right? Like baseball, like you put these teams together, more or less they're going to split them like 6-4, 5-5, something like that, you know?
I think it's going to come down to more who makes the better adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Usually Volk does very well about doing that.
He does. But I mean, shoot, who knows? Max Holloway has looked incredible in his last 2 fights.
Well, we will see.
We will, and I'm looking forward to that. Do you have any opinions about like kind of interest level in the other title fight, the middleweight fight?
I'm always interested in seeing Adesanya fight. I mean, Cannonier has power. I mean, I guess that there's always the threat there, but I kind of see Adesanya cruising to a win here.
So you think almost more like a showcase for Adesanya?
I mean, he's been saying things like, when I retire, I want to make sure I tried all these techniques. So he might throw something crazy out there just to say he tried it. Like, so I don't know if he's actually looking to finish. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, just
put on like a performance that people are like, wow, he looked really good.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I can tell you just from speaking to him the other day was that he really just doesn't seem to think that this will be one of the toughest challenges that he's ever had. Like, you know how people will be like, oh yeah, this is the toughest fight of my career, all that kind of thing. He is not saying that. He is not putting anything out there that he doesn't actually believe in. And he's just kind of like, yeah, this is, I've had tougher challenges, but I'll take this one.
Okay, I mean, that could be dangerous too. You don't want to overlook anyone.
I doubt he's overlooking anyone, but
he's also
he seems to regard that, yes, this is a dangerous fighter, but in the sense that it's like, almost like a cornered animal. It's like I'm better than you, but yeah, you could hurt me on the way.
Okay. I mean, I thought he said something along the lines he can't wait to get Alex Pereira in there with MMA gloves on.
He's definitely getting more interested in that fight. You could tell earlier this year he was kind of like, you know what, he's got a little more work to do, but I'm interested to see how it goes. And yeah, now he's just got Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira on the main card there.
Yeah, I think everyone's all rooting for that for one reason or another.
Yeah, most people would like to see, I think, Pereira, just because there's that intrigue. The storyline is so much more interesting with him and Adesanya.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that you can't deny it. Like, even if you really like Sean Strickland, I think it. And who are the people who really like Sean Strickland? I don't know who you crazy people are, but because he seems like a crazy person.
Leave all the craziness out of it. Saying stuff like, I just want to murder people in the ring and then you point fight, that should be a reason to root for him to lose.
Seems pretty disingenuous. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas, yeah, he's the whole 24 minutes, he's kind of just point fighting. And then the last minute, he's making like, come on, where you been? That just seems, it's a little put on, right? Yeah, I would like to see, I'm not rooting against Sean Strickland, even if seems kind of crazy, but I just think it's much more interesting if we get that Pereira versus Adesanya fight.
Yeah, the storyline's built there.
It's so obvious how much more interesting that fight is. You can't script it any better. It's like, oh yeah, there's this dominant champion, and there's the guy who was kind of almost this boogeyman in the other sport. And now he's here and he's almost at them. That's much more interesting to me. You're not really into this fight though, right? Jim Miller and Cowboy Cerrone, number 2. You don't like that one?
No, that's the rematch. The first fight.
And this is at 170.
Happened at 155. So this one's at 170. I think both guys are quite happy that it's at 170. No weight cutting. This is just going to be a fun fight that Jim Miller wins, probably first round.
Probably a
Omoplata.
3-second omoplata. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah, I had a feeling. I was sparing this to tell you on the show, but Jim Miller is my Q&A subject for next week.
Oh,
for this coming week.
All right. Well,
there you go.
I'll read that one.
Now, I had spoken to him when his opponent was Bobby Green.
Okay.
So you won't be seeing any answers about that. But Jim is a very long winded and thoughtful kind of guy. He'll give you a lot of information.
Yeah.
When he had him on our show, he's certainly capable of giving interesting explanations and going deep into the weeds and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm sure there will be some very interesting tidbits on Jim Miller in there for you.
All right.
And I will say, I don't think this will make it in, but I had mentioned to him, because this is going to be his 40th UFC fight.
Right.
I told him that because he's not a gamer. I said, "Oh yeah, back in those old UFC games, you get to 40 fights and they'd make you retire." He got a kick out of that.
I think 300 he wants to get to.
He's saying that he thinks he might want to get to 300, and then that would be like close the door.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you'll have to read more about that in my Q&A. But I mean, that's not the only fight. Like, there's some awesome fights on here. I really like Brad Riddell, Jalen Turner. I'm interested. I like Jalen Turner. He's a very interesting prospect at lightweight to me. And Riddell's always high action.
Always fun.
Yeah, he's always fun. Robbie Lawler, Brian Barberina. How do you not love that
They're
one?
just going to punch each other in the face till the bell rings or someone goes out.
Ian Gary, I'm interested in him as a prospect. Let's see how he does against Gabriel Green. Uriah Hall, Andre Muniz. This is a big middleweight fight as well. One of these guys could be, especially if it's Muniz, could really be pretty close to a title shot as well, just because there's so many contenders Adesanya has turned away. So if he gets another win, maybe 2, I think he's right there as well. Macy Barber and Jessica Ai. This is another one that I think these are some polarizing women, I think, in MMA, because a lot of people don't necessarily love Jessica Ai. I think they didn't like her cockiness that they've seen at times.
I don't know how late of a replacement Barber is, because it was supposed to be Jessica Ai and Casey O'Neill originally. I don't know exactly when that
Casey
O'Neill
blew her knee, right?
Yeah, I don't know when that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it shouldn't make a huge difference. I think, Macy Barber seems to have made a little bit more of adjustments since we've seen her the last time out. She looked pretty good. So I'm interested to see how that one goes. Honestly, like we're kind of name checking every fight here, but I
You got
think
the
they all
Sugar
deserve
Show,
it.
too.
Oh yeah, Sugar Sean O'Malley going against Pedro Munoz. Munoz is a tough test for him. This is actually, I would say, this is definitely his toughest test since Chito Vera.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Uh,
So if he can win that one, I think that's where you start to say, okay, maybe Sean O'Malley can do something at this division and not just be a character. You know,
makes sense that they're putting the prelims on ABC for this card.
they deserve it. It's
So-
network TV, and there's going to be some good ones. And that's probably why we're seeing a lot of the current configuration
Right.
has a lot of fights. You'd be like, well, why isn't this on the pay-per-view? It's like, well, they want to create a 2-hour card on ABC that's going to be a lot of fun too. So I get the thinking there. It's actually pretty sound thinking.
Yeah.
And even Brett Tavares and Dricus Duplessis.
This card top to bottom's really
Top
good.
to bottom.
So
You know what? I'm just going to name the last one because we haven't.
Yeah.
Jessica Rose Clark against Yulia Stolyarenko. You know what? She's there too. They're both there too. This whole fight, this top to bottom, this is a awesome card.
on paper,
We're very lucky to
on
get this one.
paper, you would call this probably the best card of the year so far.
On paper, it's the
Yes.
most stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can always go with like it's the most stacked.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it plays out, you never know.
Yeah.
But I think we're still in for a treat regardless. There should be enough here that enough of them will come through for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we did unfortunately lose a key women's fight too, right?
Yeah, that was another big one.
Yeah, I would have been nice if we were able to have Lauren Murphy and Misha Tate. I don't know if Misha Tate's going to get back on there. It sounds like it was Lauren Murphy's side who had to bow out of that one. But yeah, if we get that one, that's just a bonus.
It's just icing, yeah.
So we'll see.
All right, that does it for this episode of the Couchside Judges. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back again next week to break down the pay-per-view. Maybe something crazy at PFL happens. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think probably it's going to be a lot of UFC, though. Maybe we'll try and get a guest on. We didn't have a guest on for the last one. So we'll see if anybody else wants to join us. If you like watching and scoring fights, you're part of the media, you know what you're doing, you have to know what you're doing, let us know. Maybe we'll see.
Thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody.